Good morning, good afternoon rather. Sorry to be late this afternoon with our webinar, but today we are coming to you from 310 Scott Street, Bainbridge, Georgia, the Men's Support Program. We're here this morning to have this very intriguing and important discussion, understanding the power and purpose of men in our society. My name is Pat Roy Reeves, and I want to engage you for a few minutes to have this very meaningful discussion, empowering men to walk in their God's given purpose and transform society with the strength and grace. So today our discussion really is going to take the form of us looking at what men are faced with in our society today. My first thing I want to talk about today is the male in crisis. Historically, men have defined their roles, our manhood as various forms, or in various ways, in terms of fulfilling their role in their families, in society. They also define their roles as masculinity, to give them a cultural context when it comes on to life, right? As a result, many men believe they have lost their part in society. They are not fulfilling their true role, right? Often they don't even feel wanted or needed in their society. And so today, I want to have this discussion on the crisis that men are facing in our world today. There are men today who is saying, I am not fulfilling my purpose. I'm not fulfilling the role that I know I ought to be. They're living basically trapped in a maze that frustrates them, and they're unable to move forward purposefully. And so that is what we want to look at today. The second thing I want us to focus on, a critical crossroad. Men are at a critical crossroad in their lives. Why is this male crisis of purpose and such a pivotal issue to our society today? Men is the bedrock of our society. After God created this great earth and creation, the first thing that he created after he made all things was man in his own likeness and image. Now, the man was created before the woman, meaning that man is really the bedrock of our society. And so, for one thing is that it attacks the core of men, leaving them indecisive and fundamentally weak, right? For other, it reflects a broken down understanding of communication and cooperation between men and women that is unnatural and unhealthy, right? Males are at a critical crossroad in our society, and where they go from here will have a serious effect on the course of our society, because today men feel that they are being attacked in all different ways from their society, from varied issues. And so how do we deal with this? The consequence of ignoring men's purpose in our world, in their families, in their homes, in their churches, can have devastating impact, right? This crisis we are seeing today is actually a contemporary version of an old age dilemma. Men and women alike lost their concept of what it is truly means to be human. Male and female no longer feel that they are what they should be. And so what's the third thing that we need to look at? A crisis of role. Why is it that men are not really being effective? A crisis of role. What makes our current culture situation unsettling for men is that men in our society have traditionally defined their manhood by their roles. However, there has been a major change in the shift of roles of both male and female. And so this is affecting a lot of things that we do today. Now, from the early 40s coming to the 50s in the Industrial Revolution, we see where that the role and function of men have changed. And this is something that has not been addressed by society, by the varied things that can improve this aspect of men. And we find that it deteriorates, and men no longer feel that they are what they truly should be in our world, in our families, and in areas of society. The role and the rules of society are changing, and that is evidently in what we see happening in our world. They are being pulled in several directions at once while they try to figure out what it means to be a real man in societies today. Men's basic concept of manhood are therefore being disrupted. They feel displaced and are either frustrated and struggling in terms of understanding how to navigate this very difficult path. To adapt to new and changing situation is becoming more difficult. And so what's happening? Men are becoming hungry, and we see the frustration where they become violent in their families. They become violent in our society. But this must be stopped. We have to stem this type of things that is impeding and impacting men's life. Now, that is why we're having this discussion today, understanding the purpose of men in our society. What is a real man? It is important for us to understand what is a real man in our society today. Traditionally, the roles are being abandoned in terms of men was seen as protector, men was seen as the guardians of the family, right? But these roles are abandoned, are being replaced by different things. Many men have understand the question such as these: is a man still supposed to be the breadwinner, the protector? Today, society, it doesn't seem that way, because most women go out and they make their own bread, and they say they doesn't need men to protect them, right? That's the real reality that men are faced with. But how do men evolve and really get a footing? A man isn't sure what his purpose is anymore in the home or within the life of the women in their life. Is man still the leader and the authority in the home? Is man still the defender of his family and property and country? All of these are questions that we must basically address if we're going to deal with the crisis that men face with. Roles versus purpose is important for us to understand. Men must think in terms of purpose rather than in terms of roles, right? All this ultimately comes down to is what males use as their basis for their self-worth. Men have to begin to realize that your self-worth is not the roles that you carry out, right? And this is something that must be taught, man has to be encouraged to look and to think in this manner. And know that the roles have changed, right? They left themselves no basis for manhood. What is more troubling for men today within our society is to understand the place that they should play in our world. They will often neither withdraw from society, and we see the harmful behavior and conduct of men in our society when they are not truly understanding their purpose and their role. And so men plays a critical function in our world today, because men is really the bedrock of all that happens. It's important. We need to have women in our lives, we need to have children in our life, but men have to understand their true purpose. Now, what can men do in regards to their footing and identity, right? Because it's coming under attack in varied ways and varied forms. First, they must adopt an entirely new way of thinking, right? They need to think in terms of purpose rather than their roles, right? Because roles are changing every day. Technology and society is changing, right? The reason for us to have this discussion is men have to understand the problems today is that they are basing their worth on the wrong things, right? All along. I believe that if we don't address the men's identity crisis, our world and this generation is in deep trouble, right? There's no escaping this fact. And that is why I see it as a purpose for me to engage our men, to talk about the things that are impacting and affecting men. Now, how to overcome the men crisis in our world, the male crisis, men not fulfilling their true potential and purpose. One, we have to acknowledge our feeling as men. Men are not dealing with their feelings in an appropriate and proper way, right? Men is not addressing the feelings that they're experiencing. It is okay to feel overwhelmed, confused, or lost. Or although within yourself you might feel this way, you have to recognize that this expression of your emotion, rather than suppressing it, is important. Now, the next important thing that we have to talk to someone. Men need to get out of their self and begin to talk. Many men are not talking. We're suppressing what we're going through and experiencing, and that's not helping the crisis that men is facing. Reach out to a friend, a family, a mentor, right? Reach out to a mental health profession, sharing your thoughts and your feelings, that you can get help and support to get out of the rut that you're in. Today, we find that a lot of men, when they're not understanding how to balance life, they avoid things, and they isolate themselves. This is very difficult if you're going to assume leadership and you're going to be effective in our world. During these tough times, there is a tendency for men to withdraw and make, a lot of times, the connection that you need to make with others to get the help and to have the conversation is missing. Now, what do? We're talking about how to overcome the crises that men are faced with. One, we have to practice self-care. Men need to practice self-care. What is self-care? Prioritize activities that nurture your well-being, right? This includes that exercise, meditation, spending time in reading books, your Bible, right? Read things that do an hobby. Find an hobby that you can enjoy and do, right? These are ways that we are going to overcome the crisis that men are facing. Set small goals, right? And work towards bigger goals, right? Break down your challenges into manageable steps. Focus on small things and accomplish them to build a momentum to reach where you want to reach, to get out of that place where you are, right? You have to understand that you can overcome. Every man in our world today has been built with the capacity to be resilient and to overcome difficulties. You can overcome. There are a lot of men who are faced with divorce. There are a lot of men who are faced with dysfunctional families. There are many men who are co-parenting and having struggles in that aspect of life, right? There are many persons, and they are not reaching out because men typically feel that they are mature, but we all need each other, and there are systems and there are places for help. The wellness center in 315 Scott Street in Bainbridge, Georgia, is there for men to come. Men are neglecting to have a time. Don't limit yourself or neglect the things that can build your character, build your life, right? What are some of the things that we take a break from? The social media. Take a break from the things that are stressing you, and don't consume content that causes you to become hungry, right? How to overcome the crisis. These are some things and tips I'm giving that will help us as men. Seek professional help. If you're feeling that the crisis is becoming unbearable, you have to get some consultation, therapy, counseling, right? Who's there to provide the support? The men's service program we provide, you can connect with us. We want to be there for you. How can men overcome the crisis they're facing in their life? Find support in group. Engage with others who are going through the similar experience that can provide comfort and support in this moment. How do you overcome the crisis that we're facing as men in our society? Stay active. Physically, men need to find things to participate in, right? You need to be healthy. You need to eat right, exercise. You need to have an excellent mindset in terms of how you're going to survive this time. There are many men are worried about losing their jobs, losing their place in society. And so we want to encourage men, right? We're talking about understanding the purpose of men in our society today. You have to understand that there's a part to recover. There's a part to overcome any form of depression, any form of stress that you're encountering and going through, right? You have to also be patient with yourself, right? Recovery and to recover from any situation that you're faced with, a loss of job, a loss of your relationship, your marriage, a loss of anything vital in your life, a family member. When you're going through these situations, you can recover, right? It is a process that you have to give yourself grace as you navigate through these tough times. And so I am here today to encourage us. There are some principles that we have to look at, applicable things that men have to look at if we're going to be effective in our world and understanding your purpose, that you are here to make a difference in our world. Male have a traditional defined their manhood by roles, right? But that has changed. Historically, men and women had established roles. Many years ago, the things that women are doing now, they wouldn't do that. It was a role for men, but it is changed. How do you now live with these changes? Relationships are different for men and women, and now we no longer depend on one another for security and for survival, right? Many women are trained in varied ways to defend and protect themselves, right? Once was man roles to do that. Men are in a crisis of identity and purpose, right? And you need to understand, if you don't understand purpose, life is meaningless to you. Most men are confused over purpose and will literally sideline and even destroy their own personal life because of a lack of this knowledge, right? Understanding your purpose is important in this society. If a man links his identity to his role, right, when his role change, he gives himself no basis to believe that he's still a man and that he's valuable still and he can be effective. And so, why am I talking to you this day in this manner? All the men around the world, everywhere you are, you have purpose. You have a place in society. You are the bedrock of our society. We can't move forward effectively and conquering new heights without men being in part, without men being whole, without men being whole in all aspects of their life. A man's identity is not found in a man's identity really is found in his purpose, not in his roles. So I want to emphasize that your identity in our society is not found in the roles that you play, but it's found in your purpose, right? Men underlining purpose is in our culture today is that traditionally men function by being the protector, the provider, showing up as the head. But these roles are changing. There are a lot of homes that are single parent homes where the mothers are there, the absentees of fathers. And so this is another crisis that our world is facing, and our children are growing up without good examples and good help because the fathers are absent, because they grew up in a home where their fathers were absent, right? Knowledge of what it means to be a true man cannot be equated by observing the confusion in our culture around us today, right? The purpose of something can be found only in the mind of the maker. So if you want to know who you are, you got to get back to the man who creates you, the man who made you in his own likeness and image, right? Men needs a God-given identity if they are going to fulfill their true purpose, right? You can't fulfill your purpose looking on the varied things that are happening in our society, because society is becoming so monotonous with all kind of things. Men are trying to use things to replace the true purpose. Technology can't replace the true purpose of man, right? AI cannot replace the true purpose of man. A real man is someone who knows the reality of who he is and who lives within that reality, right? And so we're talking about understanding your purpose today, men. And all of our society today need men who can be triumphant, be overcomers, to understand that you in society is looking to men. Society is looking for strong men, men who are men of valor, men who are overcomers, men who will stand up for their children, stand up for their family, stand up for moral principles, stand up for that which is right in our world today. So the crisis that men is faced with, they can overcome, but they can't overcome it by themselves. You need the support of persons who have had experience in varied capacity. You have to retrain your mind, retrain how you think, retrain yourself to know that there's more to you, right? That you were designed to be successful. You were designed to conquer and to overcome. When we look at the resilience of men as we evolve over many decades and years, men has conquered many things, and we see men continue to conquer. But in the midst of a lot of men being successful, there are men who are struggling in our society that need support, right? And we find where men, you can't define yourself by your roles only. You have to define yourself by your purpose, right? Your purpose is that you were made to fulfill a certain role, right? That role cannot be replaced by a woman. It cannot be replaced by technology. It can't be replaced by a lot of things that we try to use to fill those gaps, right? Those gaps can't be filled by those things. You have to know that there's wisdom, there's knowledge. God has imparted to man great wisdom, right? Great knowledge for men to be supportive to his role here in our society. So we're talking about understanding your purpose in society. This society in which we're living is changed, and it's changing rapidly, but you can evolve and be successful. And so today, as we talk about understanding the power and purpose of men in our society, men is the most powerful element in our world ever been. Men has conquered so many things, and men still can conquer, but you got to understand your role. Your role in society is changing, but guess what happened? Your purpose remained the same, right? You were created in the likeness and image of God to fulfill a certain purpose. And so we encourage you today, men, join us for empowerment. Join us at the Women's Wellness Center at 310 Scott Street, Bainbridge, Georgia. We are there to give support and help. Men who are having challenges, you have to be co-parenting and you're having struggles. Men who have lost their purpose and direction. We want to support you. And so, again, I say thanks for spending this time with us, understanding that the power and purpose of men in our society. Have a great afternoon.